Hello and welcome to Comfort Legacies with Faye Michele. Today we have our great guest here, Mr. Marcus, and he's going to go ahead on and introduce himself, and we're going to talk about his book and his journey. So, how are you doing this morning?
I am great, Faye Michele, and thank you for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So, walk us through. Tell us about your book.
So my book, The Gratefulness Journey, every day, what are you doing in the next 30 days to transform your life, really is book number 4, Faye, of other books, but it's the book that I started last. So I haven't completed the other 3. So it's an interesting story in and of itself.
Oh, okay.
So book number 4 is the first to market. And book number 4 is a concept that I've been thinking on, but just started writing in the pandemic and completed in the pandemic. So how about that? It was pandemic writing.
Pandemic writing.
It emerges from my story of personal loss. Both my parents, 3 of my 4 siblings, my best friend, 2 aunts, and an employee all passed in a 9-year time frame. And so it talks about my quest for greater living, for more grateful living, and 3 principles that anybody can implement in their life to lead a more grateful life.
Okay. Now I remember. That is awesome. Now tell me, how did you get to the end first?
Great story. I was in the supermarket, and again, at this point, I had the concept, Faye, about the gratefulness journey because I'd been talking with it. I'm also a talk show host on Facebook. So I've been talking to different people about this gratefulness journey every day, implementing it in your life. And I was in the store and I had an encounter with a cashier during the pandemic where we both were literally in tears. So you'd have to read the book to get the whole story. I'm just
okay.
And I decided at that point, I need to write this now. Now, you know, as a writer, even if you don't call yourself a writer officially, you have moments where you're blocked, right? Or moments where you lose the inspiration or moments where you get distracted. So in the very first book that I started writing, which is more a fictional book, I had intermittent points where I stop writing, start writing, stop writing. I had points along the journey where I said, am I a writer? Should I write this? You know, what is the voice for this, right? But this came and resonated with me so much in this time that it got to market first. And it actually reinvigorated me to go back and start working on those others to complete them. So.
Gotcha. But right now it was imperative to get what was in you out.
Yeah, what was pressing me, because I believe the other books are in me, but this was pressing on me. It was weighing on me to almost like a burden. I have to share this message.
Wow. Okay, I understand that. I won't go into my tangents, but I understand that. So when did you release this book?
So it was released on March 12th, so just a little over 30 days ago. On Amazon is where the ebook and paperback are available. So I'm a brand, as they would say, spanking new author, brand new. Yeah.
Spanking new author. Okay. Do you have a copy of the book?
I have a copy of the book here.
Oh, okay.
This is the Gratefulness Journey Everyday book. And I am just excited. I really am excited to be an author. I didn't think I would have this much excitement, but I'm so proud.
You're taking away my question. You're taking away my question. Okay, before we get there, now, how did you self-publish? Because you knew nothing about this, or you've been researching. How did you get to self-publishing?
So I did a little research. I had in the past done a little research and thought because it would be the easiest entry to market that I would self-publish.
Yes.
But I have been following Reedsy, Reedsy. They're a community of writers and they share a lot of information. So I've been watching some of their videos on their mailing list and just learning about the process. And so I found a really great editor that I liked. We clicked right away, which I think is important because it's your work, right? So putting your work in somebody's hands, you have to really trust them. And so I deal with Hen House Publishing. I have been looking on Fiverr and Upwork and different places. And so on one of those places, she responded to me and said, hey, I'm interested based on your little summary, I'm interested in hearing more about the book. Are you still looking for an editor? So I did all of my writing. And then, of course, I, did a Grammarly overlook of it to make sure that it was punctuated well, could read well. Then I gave it to her for what is called developmental editing. Okay, is it engaging? Is the story cohesive? Should parts be moved around? And so we had a couple of rounds of back and forth. Round one wasn't as pretty as I thought, because she was the editor to say, oh, this was just fantastic. And she did, but she had some differences of opinion on some things. So, I stayed true to some of those things, and some of those things I kind of acquiesced. And so after that, I worked on getting a design for the cover. The thing I would tell authors, I'm also an HR professional. And so I'm used to,
you said HR?
Yes. Over 25 years as a human resources professional, certified by the Society of Human Resources Management and the HRCI Institute.
So where are you from?
I am in Detroit, Michigan, born and reared.
Okay.
From the D.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wait a minute. So, my author yesterday, she's a human resource manager from LA. And she does students in the arts department, like the talented arts school.
Got it.
So that's an interesting fact. Okay, so your developmental editor. I want to ask you, when you said you got rid of some things and maybe kept some things, what type of things would a developmental editor ask you to remove?
Of course, they suggest remove. They never really ask you that, but they suggest it, of course. But the kinds of things. There was one story, because I tell these stories throughout the book, and there was one story that didn't resonate as much with her that she said, I would consider swapping out this. Do you have another story? And it was one of the things I was insistent upon, but it took me to explain to her a little bit. She said, oh, well, let's move this around. And then let's put a little more light around the story, put a little more context into the story. I see why you put it in. But, at first she was like, well, take it out. She didn't say it that way. She said, I recommend that you swap out the story. And I was like, excuse me, this is fair. But after having some dialogue, I understood where she was coming from. We were able to move some things around. So,
okay. Yeah, that's very important, because oftentimes authors get slammed with the titles of their books. When they go through editing, and so that's a really big point. And since you brought that up, I really wanted to hit on that. So, how did you come up with your title? I know you said you do a podcast or a show and talk about these issues. So, what made you lean toward the Gratefulness Journey?
So, the Gratefulness Journey every day is a small movement that I hope will grow, right? And so, out of that Facebook group, there are a group of people. About a year and a half ago, who said, hey, I'm in this gratefulness journey every day. And so it's a small group of them. And I've been talking to them about this gratefulness journey and some of the stuff in the book. And so that's where the title came from. I put the subtitle there just as hopefully to whet people's appetite to say, oh, I can do this in 30 days. Certainly you can start it. And depending on whether or not you stack the habit appropriately, you can create a habit for yourself within 30 days. So it was kind of, that part is kind of the whet the appetite, but the gratefulness journey every day is the title. And so that's where that comes from.
Okay. Yeah. Who was that philosopher? You can do it in 30 days. Mr. Right. I'm remembering psychology now.
Oh,
Since you mentioned that. Okay. Okay. So what we do here is, like, I really like to get into the mechanics of self-publishing. And so we kind of reach out to the audience and give them some cues and pointers. So what would you say was your greatest challenge in writing the book?
The greatest challenge in writing the book for me was the season in which I wrote it. It's the pandemic, so everybody is pivoting,
Yes.
working remotely or doing hybrid work. And I also do music with one of the churches here, and we had 5 seniors who passed away, I think, within the first 45 days. So contending with that and contending with other friends and families who, because Detroit was hit really hard very early on. So
Yes.
contending with all of the people that are impacted and trying to keep a focus around being grateful and writing about it, I think was the biggest challenge. It was fitting it in between all of the Zooms, right? And all of the meetings and trying to make sure that employees were okay and trying to fit that headspace in and say, I'm going to keep writing, I'm going to keep writing, I'm going to keep writing. That for me was the biggest challenge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it, and I don't even know the story, but just putting me right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I can envision that.
Yeah.
So, wow, Marcus, that was a feat. So now you've decided to write the book. It's in the midst of the pandemic. You're working remotely from home. You're challenging, just to press on, and then it finally happens.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like? Because you've been waiting for years to write a book.
Yeah.
And then finally you get to push that button. What was that like?
Well, I'd have to tell you, Faye Michele, around January, I was a little frustrated and like, well, I don't know if this is going to happen. I couldn't decide on some things in the introduction. And so I said, I don't know, this might be like the others. It's a good, I got it almost there. And my editor said, you're going to finish this. You'll see, you're closer than you think. Step away from it for a minute and then go back to it. But don't step away from it longer than a few days. So I did that. And I thought day number 1, I'll step away from it. Day number 2, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yes.
Which was something different than before. Sometimes if I set something aside, I can forget it, right? I could not stop thinking about it. And then I was clear that it was going to happen. So from January to March, I had this excitement and kind of fury. Okay, what are the things I need to do? Because I hadn't thought about promoting the book.
Right. No.
So I was like, okay, now what do I do? And so I went through that and was working on the cover. And then right around March 5th or so, I knew that I was a button away from it happening. It was a point of deciding which day of the week. And, there's some research out there, which day is more productive when people are buying and when people aren't buying, right? So I did a little bit of that research to decide which day of the week I would release it. And I started saying, okay, now, am I going to do a launch party on every social media channel? What's the plan? And so right around March 5th or 6th, I knew I was going to do it. And so when Amazon sends you that email, congratulations, you're an author. You kind of scream with your cough cup and like, I don't believe I did this.
Yes.
And now you're like, I can do anything. So that was kind of the feeling when I hit that button, like, yes, we're ready to go. I just couldn't believe it. I called a good friend of mine and said, can you believe that it's Marcus Holmes, the author that you're speaking with? I was so excited. I was very excited.
Oh, wow. And so now that's the first layer of excitement. Then what happened when you got that book in your hand?
Oh, my goodness. I took a ton of pictures, with the book in my hand. And of course, I held it and then I modeled holding it open and texted to friends and of course made it the cover page on most of the social media platforms. I was just, again, it was like you knew that you had written the book, but to put it in your hands was a whole nother thing, right? And so it was, you're right, another layer of excitement.
Yes, elated. Right. Wow. So Marcus, how did you come up with your cover?
So I use this company called 100covers.com, and they have pretty good customer service. I wanted to have the sunset in the background because I want people to think of awakening, something new, something fresh. And then I wanted colors because I wanted it to stand out. And I wanted a purple in there, but I wanted, I looked at some of the popular books in my genre or one of the genres. And I saw one where Adam Grant, who's a pretty popular author, had these shades of different colors. And I said, that's it, but I want different colors. And so I chose the colors and we went back and forth. Said, nope, that's not quite the purple. Nope, I need this, darken it, lighten it. So we kind of went back and forth and got these different layers of color. And so that's, what I wanted. I wanted from left to right to be different layers of color on top of this background where the sun is peeking through.
Yes. Pull it a little closer.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Right. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good.
It does. That's what I wanted. Wanted people to want to wake up and read it, wake up and refer back to it. And we're also have a inside the book is a link for people to get a journal that they can have in Word or PDF form. So they just click on that link and enter their information. And the cover is the same. And I want people to wake up every day wanting to record if they write or wanting to reflect on their gratefulness moment. So I wanted it to be something that people wanted to put in their hand.
Okay, that's really cool. So you have a link that you can link onto and they can actually go into, I'm gonna have to take that one from you.
Yeah, I got that from Readsy. They said because Amazon, of course, doesn't give you customer information, right? And so you want to have hyperlinks in your ebook and a link in your paperback, but they have to copy it, right? But in the ebook, you can click on the link and it'll take you right to it, and then you get a free gratefulness journal. And now you have some way to communicate with people who have purchased your book.
That is cool. That is really cool because I did a book called How to Write a Book in like 8 steps or something like that. How to publish.
Oh, I wish I had that before this. I should have got that book before I wrote it.
Yes, it's kind of the the do's and the don'ts. Well, especially with children's books, editing and things like that. And then I put a complete copy of the book inside.
Wow.
Really, and I wished I had that link, and then people could actually go in and start doing their own little. So I'm gonna have to get with you on that. That is awesome.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Faye Michele. I did not know that you had a book writing books, especially for children's authors, because book number 3 or the third book I started is a book on colorism for little girls.
Oh yes.
And that's going to be the next one that comes out. I hope it will come out around July. So I need to read your book to make sure I've covered my bases.
Oh yes. I got a lot of them. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. See, now before I go off, what advice would you give to the audience, someone who wants to get started on becoming an author? Just don't know where to get started.
I know for each person it's probably different as to what your inspiration is and what your process is. I can say with some books, I created an outline.
Yes.
With this book, I knew what I wanted to say, and that's how I developed that outline. And I almost had the end in mind. I know it sounds Stephen Covey-ish, but I almost had the end in mind at the beginning. I knew how I wanted the book to end. So the book kind of ends with a gratefulness love letter to the reader. And I knew that was going to be the end of the book to encourage people to get on the journey. But I also knew that it needed some science. I needed people to understand that there's some science behind it. So as long as you know the elements of the book, if you don't, I think you go on an exploratory journey. For me, in the pandemic, it was bicycling. I hadn't did bike riding in years. Hadn't owned a bike in years. I still don't. I have a MOGO pass. So we have bike stations around the city. Right. And what I did is I went to a park there, grabbed a bike, rode around the park, which is about 2.5 miles. And during that time, I just let my thoughts speak to me. And so that was my way of writing where, I needed to formulate ideas. And some of it was just observing what was happening around me started to inform me about what I wanted to hone in on. That's my process. But I would say in that, anybody can find something that they love to do where you get lost in it, where you're in flow. And then when you are in flow, listen to what you're hearing. Listen to what you're hearing and start to either voice record it or write it down. And I think that's a good way to start the writing component of it. Of course, invest in a Grammarly type app where you can start to do some of your own edit as it relates to grammar, or it provides you great suggestions as you go along. And then get a developmental editor who can help you put it in place. Should this really be your opening story? Should this really be your close? And if it's fiction, you're going to, do a different type of writing, I think, than you're going to do for nonfiction. So, it might be more evocative if you're doing fiction, right? So you want to, be able to color that text and be able to put the person's center into those stories. And there's a bit of that in nonfiction, but nonfiction, you do want to make sure it's clear and concise and that you're giving people something that they can put their teeth in and use. That's what I think is important in a nonfiction, right? But of course, I'm a new author, but those are things I would suggest.
Yeah, right. With accolades behind you. So that is absolutely, I think that's a great way to look at it. Do you think you have to be passionate about something before you start to write?
I think that's a good way to start. I was passionate about all of these topics, but I think you could intersect passion. If you're living on purpose, and you're awakened to something that brings you passion, that's a great spot to start writing. So you could be awakened to a passion and not necessarily have it if you're living on purpose. And what I mean by that, Michele, Faye, is if you're living in what you feel that, Faye, Michele, I'm sorry, if you're living in what you feel called to do, and you find meaning from your work, every day you're closing your eyes saying, I did what I was supposed to do. God, thank you for this day. And I've done what I was supposed to do today. And something in that awakens, enlivens you. That's a good place to start writing.
Okay. That works. Wow. I want to ask more about it. Just go into it a little bit deeper. Tell me a little something. Tell me about one of those stories.
Okay, I'm going to read a slight snippet from the book.
Yay! Okay.
Just a small part.
All right.
And this is from the introduction, so I hope it whets your appetite.
Okay.
Author Ernest Gaines writes that the major conflict in my work is when the Black male attempts to go beyond the line drawn for him. So those are words from one of my authors that I look up to, I guess I would say, Ernest Gaines. My conflict, I write, was that the line had been drawn. I just didn't know it. Attempt after attempt, I hit my head against the walls of consternation, trying desperately to access peace. I needed peace to deal with the exit of loved ones from my life. I longed for peace to weather the racism and microaggressions that I experienced on the job. I hoped for peace to salve the struggle to bring my authentic self forward into every aspect of my being. You see, in America, some cannot accept the fact that Black people, African Americans, are already their equals. They relegate us to certain professions, entertainers, athletes, and tradesmen, certain behaviors, lawlessness, substance abuse, and child abandonment, and certain positions, docile, angry, and indifferent. So in walks this outspoken but loving, gutsy, and compassionate, tough yet tender-hearted human resources guy, and there goes the line, and there goes a visit to the doctor. So that's a part of the introduction to whet your appetite. All of these different things are happening throughout my life, and I'm calling for peace. I'm hoping for peace and trying to find it. And I got on a journey to find it in Gratefulness Journey every day.
Okay, now you know that was a cliffhanger. There goes a visit to the doctor. You got me on that one. I'm just leaning into it, really good. So you have to send me a copy autographed.
Absolutely.
So, I'm so excited for you. This is I heard your testimony, And I was like, oh, I got to get that guy on.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here to do more of these shows. So, tell all of your friends and all of your subscribers, thank you for watching, and share more. I'll come back. Now you're out west, so I'm looking for a connection, Faye Michele, at Amazon, because I have a really great idea for them to help us authors.
Okay, so you mean
someone who is a decision maker in the customer or reader experience. I have an idea that's a game changer, and I know it's like a cliffhanger, but I need to strike a deal with Amazon, because it's something that, especially because of this pandemic, will help engage both their authors and readers, and I know it will drive sales through the roof.
Awesome. So I will be on the lookout. One of my questions would be, what is it that you need? What would you need? I usually, ask, what do you have for the audience? But I'm asking, and you answered that question. Okay. So what would you need? Is there something that you could take away from the conversation?
Well, I know that you've already told me you've written a book that's going to help me just to make sure I'm on point with the children's book, which is important to me. I believe that every child should understand that the title of the book is All Shades of Beautiful. And every child, without regard to hue, should feel that they are beautiful. And, there's a lot of psychology around. We develop our sense of beauty by what other people tell us and show us is beautiful. So it's our job in this society, in our village, to tell and show our children what beautiful means. And we need to tell them pretty early, right? So that they begin to have the self-image. Okay, they're going to reconcile how they look to what we say is beautiful. And that's such a powerful responsibility, isn't it? Because we have TV and social media and videos where they might be seeing images that don't reflect beauty, right? They're seeing police brutality, and they're seeing people who look like them killed, and the devaluation of life. We're not telling them that they're beautiful. So your book might help me to synthesize in a way to make sure I've got everything covered. So I think I got that. And of course, if you got a connection to Amazon or any of your subscribers, that's the other thing I would love to take away from the conversation. The other thing, it just gets me in, it reinvigorates me, I better say, to get out here and sell this book. I think people would buy it, but some people don't know about it. So how do I get more people to know about it, without mortgaging my home and selling the furniture, right? Somehow I've got to get my book in front of a lot more people. And so I walk away from this conversation a little bit more encouraged to do that. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And I just feel like you have really enriched our audience. Wow. And we'll definitely have you back. So I will say goodbye for now. Okay?
Thank you so much to you and your listening audience. And thanks for the opportunity, Faye Michele. I really appreciate it.
Very, very welcome.